My name is Dr. Pooja, Management Faculty at Shoolini Online Venture. I'm excited to welcome you all to the Fireside chat on Demystifying Industry through the lens of academia between Mr. Mayank Bathwal, CEO of Aditya, and Professor Ashish Khosla, President of Innovation and a co-founder at Shoolini University. I formally welcome Professor Ashish Khosla and Mr. Mayank, who is joining us online today for the session. Also, last but not the least, I welcome all young and dynamic management students and CSE students, along with Shoolini online students who have joined us virtually. Before we start, allow me to introduce our eminent speakers for the day today. First, we have our own Professor Ashish Khosla, the President and Chief Innovation and Marketing Officer at Shoolini University. He brings a rich blend of academia and professional expertise, having pursued his electronics engineering at FET Chandigarh and MBA from IIM Calcutta. His career spans over 25 years in global business management and leadership roles. He is not only the founder of Shoolini University, but also a managing director at Aaddoo, an AI-powered edtech company. Moreover, Professor Khosla's role as the driving force behind Shoolini Online initiative demonstrates his dedication to use technology in making quality education accessible to a wider audience. And our own speaker, guest for the today, Mr. Mayank Bathwal, as the CEO of Aditya, offers a deep understanding of the corporate landscape and the evolving dynamics within the various industries. His perspective will shed light on the practical applications of academic knowledge and in the real world scenario. Now, without wasting time, it's over to you, Ashish, sir. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Mayank.
Good afternoon.
Thank you very much for being here with us today. Really appreciate taking time off. And I think everybody here at Shoolini, all the students are really excited to hear from you about the future, about your perspective on the future of the industry and insurance in general. But before that, Mayank, what's been your journey to the top of the corporate ladder in India? I understand that you've also done a fair bit of very high-end executive education, including at Stanford and Harvard. So what's your journey been and what's your field learning in terms of the education that you've had on your way up to the top?
Yeah, thanks. Firstly, thanks, Ashish, and thank you to the entire team at Shoolini for this opportunity to talk to the young, bright minds that I'm assuming are there in the audience. We can't see, I can't see the audience. So, hello, everyone.
Yeah,
no, I understand. No, it's okay. So I'm just saying, since I can't see them, just saying hello virtually. Good to be with you guys. I have, Ashish, I have been with the same kind of employer, Aditya Birla Group, for last 30 years. I mean, once I finished my education, I'm chartered accountant and a few other finance kind of professional degrees that I, completed. And one thing which I learned very early in my career from some very, very senior professional that I got an opportunity to work with is about this whole need to have learning agility, and that it was less so complex in 30 years back when I started my career, but today even more so when we are operating in such a kind of vibrant but at the same time complex ecosystem where changes can happen overnight, and therefore the ability to adapt and be agile to what's really happening is so very important for every professional. And what I have kind of personally, and always I encourage all my colleagues and team members, is that be open for kind of continuous learning and be a lifelong learner. And in that pursuit, kind of every opportunity that I've got personally, I've kind of not let it go. So recently, for example, I got an opportunity to spend a fairly longish period of time. It was difficult, but and in their flagship advanced management program, which was like virtually 8 weeks out of work plus virtual training apart from that. And I think the whole idea is about just getting a sense of what's happening outside of the ecosystem that you typically operate in. Like, let's say if I'm running a health insurance business today, of course I understand the health insurance business, but but what is really happening outside which can impact my business tomorrow? If I don't have a sense of that, I think I'm not sure that I'll be able to lead the organization in making it future ready. And I think so that's one. And personally also, there's so much that as an individual we must kind of consistently be ready to understand and be ready for the next set of opportunities, challenges that come our way. I would strongly urge everyone, and I say this, that do not leave an opportunity to get experience to something new, whether it's through the process of a learning intervention or whether it's through the process of different experiences that you can get in different stints, etc. at job. We can talk more about this, but I think at the core is being a lifelong learner and having the agility to adapt to what you get to hear and know and listen when we are talking to experts, etc.
So great, thanks, Mayank. I mean, it's important to be a lifelong learner. Some of our students, I mean, all of our students are actually starting out their learning process. And today we have students in our first year of, first and second years of computer science and first year of management. So what is your advice to them from a learning perspective? I mean, today day and age where AI, technology, digital are key disruptors in the business world. So what is it that you think our students should look at in terms of preparing themselves for their first job to start with, and then going forward from there into successful careers in say companies such as yours?
See, I'm assuming that there are different courses that the university provides, and students have kind of opted for different courses, with different specialities, etc., which is a choice that they have made today. And therefore, I think the important thing is for at this point of time, uh, for them will be to kind of make the most of this opportunity to be at a world-class university, make the most of the opportunity to interact with different professors and kind of go beyond what the courses define, as we say. And so I think which I'm sure you guys will be guiding them to make the most of their stint in in the university for whatever. I'm assuming there are what 4-year courses. Ashish?
Computer science is a 4 year course, Mayank. Management MBA is a 2 year course.
2-year course, yeah.
A BBA could be 3 or 4 years, depending on the choice of the student.
Yeah, so I think the important point is, important thing is to do, to make the most of the course, but at the same time build, networks also, right? Because when you get to the business world, in whether in some cases it could be the first job, in some cases it could be, let's say, an MBA. Sometimes, people, I'm assuming kids are coming after having had work experience. They the first job will typically be linked to their areas of specialty. The only thing that I tell everyone is that just because you've chosen an area of specialty does not mean that that's the end of what you will do in your career ahead. I think the important point is to be kind of ready to kind of be exposed to and seek experiences of different nature when you get to an organization. Of course, starting with your whatever your preferences are, your choices you've made early in your career, but you never know what will ultimately be the right thing for you. I'll give you an example of my own case. I'm a finance professional. I started my career as a finance professional, moved through for the first 6, 7, 8 years in finance, and at some point of time, when I was wondering whether I should kind of continue with finance or I should explore something else. I didn't realize, I mean, I got an opportunity to do sales, and I never realized how much fun I had in doing sales, right? Typically, finance professional will feel that I had that scare in my mind that whether I'll be able to do well in sales, whether I'm cut for it. But the day I did it, I realized, oh my God, it's just so enjoyable for me. For someone else, it may not be. but having the willingness to adapt to the situation that you're facing and be ready to seek and accept different exposures and experiences is in general is something that I think I would kind of urge all students to be ready for. Ultimately, those experiences may be something that you may like or you may not like, but what will never happen is that you'll not learn something in that experience or in that exposure, that stint, that project, or whatever you pick up. So I think that just being open to kind of try out different things is what I'll say. And build relationships with with your fellow students, build relationship with professors, stay in touch when you go back to the working world, because I think it's very important, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, that it's very important to maintain the relationship and connection with the academia even when you're in the professional industry world.
Very true, Mayank. In fact, I just kind of look back in my own career. I started as an engineer, and then immediately after my MBA and care and moved into sales. I actually had a very largest thing in finance at Citibank. Before I moved into productive technology, eventually into business management. So the idea is one needs to be open to opportunities and gaining diverse set of experiences, as you just stated here. What do you think? In the era of artificial intelligence, do you think there is a drastic change that will happen, which our students need to be aware of? That is happening in the market, in the business world. One last question on that before I come to asking a few questions on the company itself.
Yeah, see, I think today we are talking of AI. Tomorrow we'll talk of something else in technology. I think the important, issue is not only about whether it's AI or, in the latest avatar of AI, which is Gen AI, and AI has been there for quite some time. It's just that now we have a much more consumer-facing, consumer-engaging version of AI, which makes the power of AI being felt by consumers in general, individuals in general, professions in general, at a much larger scale and speed. The important thing is that, which to my first point, that having the ability to learn and adapt to what's really happening in the world. And for that, one of the skill that students must continue even after they go out of the institute is the reading skill, right? Because how will you otherwise reading, interacting, attending, listening, and whether they like reading or listening to kind of people speaking, that's their choice. But what I mean is being aware of what. So I think, yes, some of these new technology and that are emerging, AI is just one bit of it, by the way. There are many new technology which is disrupting different industries. I mean, in the industry that I am in, AI is just one of the industries that is disrupting. There are stuff that is happening in the area of longevity, for example, aging. People are saying 100 will become the new normal. Now, what impact will it have on the business and social impact on how people live, and therefore, let's say in health insurance? I think there are many other trends which are going to shape and reshape the environment in which we operate. If you are agile, if you are able to adapt to these new environments, I think you will be relevant. But if you kind of become too complacent based on what skills you have, and those skills may have made you very successful. I mean, in my position, just because I'm the CEO of an insurance company doesn't mean that my learning ends. I mean, if I'm not able to kind of understand some of these trends and how that will impact my industry, I may not be relevant 2 years from now, I mean, for my next job. So I think that is important. Of AI, of course, is very, very critical, Ashish, because it's changing many jobs, nature of jobs. What human could do now, machine can do. But they say that the best thing that will happen is when human and machine work together. That combination is what will make the most powerful impact. And therefore, if you have the ability to work with AI, I think that can create magic.
Very true. I mean, there are a fair range of technologies that are already there, and new technologies also on the anvil, right? AI, of course, is one of the big ones. Blockchain is the other one. They will have impact on things like health, and that's very relevant to your industry. Because I'm just wondering, if everybody lives up to the age of 100, what will happen to health insurance then? And things like that. But tell me, how have you led your company, and there's been a fair amount of disruption that the Aditya Birla Health Insurance team and company has done in the market itself, in the Indian health insurance market. So what are some of these, and what have we actually done in terms of strategizing and operationalizing those?
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a slightly broader answer to that, Ashish, which is relevant not just for what we are doing, but I think the approach that we use to decide what we will do. And the approach was that, when we were setting up this business about 8-9 years back, and the initial team of a few of us, we sat down to decide our strategy. Our whole thought was that before we get into the details, we must answer the first question, which is a question of existence itself. That what should give right to this organization to exist in the market? And that is relevant for even individuals, by the way. I mean, we tried to answer that question for an institution that we are trying to create. That why should we exist, and therefore why will the market accept us as another player in the in the industry? And I think that's the answer that we attempted to answer first. And as we started to answer that question, it started opening up and our minds to really what our strategy should be. So we were operating in a health insurance industry, going to operate in a health insurance industry which was operating in a certain manner. We felt that the whole approach to insurance industry could be changed by kind of really reshaping the way consumers think about it. For example, in insurance industry, we said, why health and then insurance comes? So why should we talk to consumers in the language of insurance? Why should we, which is a language of fear, which is a negative language? Why should we not talk to consumers in the language of health, which is a positive language, right? If I go and tell you, hey, Ashish, something will happen to you, buy insurance, you may feel, why are you telling me something will happen? If I say, hey, Ashish, you care about your health and your family's health, what if we help you in that journey? And if something happens wrong, we'll pay you for your insurance as well. I think that's a very positive conversation. So I think what we did is we changed the whole narrative from insurance to health. And we see ourselves actually as more of a health company than an insurance company. And therefore, everything that we built, our offering, our proposition, our service, our digital capabilities was built around promoting good health. That is the way we have attempted to really reshape the health insurance industry, which is why we've been successful. But going back to your core question, the issue is, are we doing something which is fundamentally what the consumers need? Or are we doing something because we have a product and now we want to go and sell it to someone? There are two very different things. So if you see disruptions happening, they address core consumer needs. Sometimes those needs are not even understood by the consumer, and they're not even able to explicitly talk about that. But there is an inherent need. And I think if you're able to kind of make that surface and make the consumer realize, hey, this is really serving, then you can create success at a very different scale.
Very true. I would not like to conjecture on the inherent need on health insurance. I think that's a pretty deep one. But what trends do you normally see in the market? Is there a changing consumer perspective towards the category of health insurance? Or in terms of services and products in general, can you see a shift in the younger generation, for example? When I was a kid, when I started out my career, I never even seriously thought about health insurance until my company just gave it to me when I was 26, 27. Gradually, over the years, the last 25, 30 years, I've learned the importance of that I think service, right? So is there a change that is happening in perspective there?
Yeah, there is a change happening. I think COVID was actually a big point of change, because people realize that anything can happen to anyone at any point of time. Typically, what does a health insurance company do? Health insurance company protects, in its traditional avatar, a customer from the negative financial impact of a health event by taking care of the cost. And I think typically till about a few years back, there was this whole thing that, hey, why should I buy? Because nothing is going to happen wrong to me, right? And in India, we believe in karma, that all our good deeds will never allow something wrong to happen to us. And I think and especially the younger, kids, rightly so. Like if you're a 25, you're 26-year-old, I mean, why would you think about a bad health event for you, right? I mean, you'll think I'm in good health shape, then why? So if insurance is only covering for your, hospitalization event, that's the last thing that you'll think about. But I think one is COVID shifted the trend. But the other thing is like when which is why fundamental reason why we changed the narrative. We said, don't worry about a bad health event, but what if everyone wants to stay healthy, right? There's no question about it. But so if I can play a role in being a partner in that journey, then suddenly consumer feedback changes, because consumer says, hey, that's interesting, tell me what. Even young, I mean, we have the youngest, for example, cohort of consumers in our book that we vis-a-vis anyone else, because we reward consumers for staying healthy, we give access. So I think consumer views are now changing in terms of, one, because of their access to internet and web and all, their expectation of instant gratification, their expectation of Uber-like experience, the expectation of, I must get in everything that I want at that point of time at potentially the cheapest price, because I know there's no, there's no asymmetry of information, which used to be something that businesses used to leverage in the early part. Today you can go to the web, internet, and find out everything about any company, price, etc., etc. So I think the consumers are much more demanding today, and businesses have to respond to it. So to that extent, including the health insurance industry.
Do you also see that the changing need for greater consumer trust and this whole emphasis on security and privacy versus a few years back? And how is it that you are addressing that? Because I think that will also be a big one going forward.
See, trust, of course, it goes into any relationship, right? I mean, whether it's a personal relationship, whether it's a relationship with a brand, if the element of trust is not there, I don't think so any relationship can survive. And in a business like health insurance, where the relationship is as long as it can get, right? If I sell you a health insurance policy today, Ashish, you will be my customer till the end of your life. I mean, it's as long as that. So, trust is absolutely imperative. And I think that goes for not just in this, even if you're buying a television, you trust that that brand is going to serve you, right? You'll not buy if you don't trust that. So trust is at the core of any relationship, that goes without saying. And I think even more so when you're selling a promise. If you're selling a tangible product, at least I've got that. I've bought a mobile, I've got a car, I've got a television set. But I'm buying a promise of someone giving me that money when I need that. So I think trust becomes even more important in financial services. But to your second point on privacy and security, of course we want privacy, but I think I always wonder whether privacy is really as critical as we somehow think it is, right? We all use, all kind of social media, Google, etc. And do we, I'm sure, do we even realize that Google knows us better than even, like maybe our family members do, right? So in some way, we are willing to give up all our information. I mean, when I see people posting, messages on Facebooks and the, Instagrams and all, where is the privacy? Where is that coming from, right? So I think it's element of trust, and it's also about whether it will be misused. The day I feel that it has been misused, then suddenly I start looking at whether it's really privacy is there or not. If I have a fear, for example, in health, will I want to give my health data to insurance company? If I have a fear that they will use it for, changing my premium the other way around, or not paying my claim, then I have a problem. Then it's a privacy issue. But if I start, getting a sense that actually this can be used by them to help me in my health journey, then suddenly I'm much more okay to share. Like we see consumers sharing so much of their health information with us, because they probably have trust that, we'll use them for the right reason. So I think that element of trust and privacy also go together, as you asked. I'm willing to share, but I must have trust that it will be used for my benefit.
Thanks. That's a very candid answer, Mayank. Now, actually, I have an audience online. They have a few questions, and we also have this audience over here. So, I can open it up. I can open the floor for the audience here, or I can take a few questions from the online audience. What do you want, Manish? Manish is there. I've been of management. Yeah, sure.
I can start.
Yeah. Here's the mic to Manish.
Hi, Mayank.
Hi.
Thank you so much for your time today. Very simple question. How healthy is India today?
Sorry, I didn't get your question. Your
I
voice.
said, how healthy is India today?
How healthy is India today? That's a very big question. I don't think that there's one answer to that question, Manish. Is India today more health conscious than it was 10 years back? I would say yes, India is more health conscious. So there are segments of Indian population. I do see more health consciousness in the youngsters today. And I think some of that also has changed in post-COVID, where I find people willing to, for example, I'll give you one simple example. If you used to ask people to go for health checkup, people will be very concerned about that. They will say, no, 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 no. What if something happens? What if something comes out? And we used to tell them you can't operate like a, ostrich with a head in the sand and think if you don't look out, nothing will happen to you. What will happen to you will happen. So today they are much more willing because they have seen COVID. So the element of health awareness and consciousness have definitely improved. But I think we are a long way away from being a healthy country, if you ask me. We are not a we're not a country which necessarily plays sports, for example. Youngsters, if you look at it, is sports in our culture. If you go to some of the other Western countries, I mean, on the weekends they will definitely they'll have some hobby of some sports of some kind of a physical kind of indulgence. Is that a culture today in India? No, it is not. Do we, are we very aware of what our current health condition is? Because the first step to being healthy is to know what is your current health, right? Because then only you can act on it. No, we don't want do enough on that. And there are some, unfortunately, some uh, some realities of the South Asian genes which actually create some challenges of lifestyle conditions like diabetes, etc., which makes it that in prevalence of some of those lifestyle conditions in India much more than other parts of the world. But and therefore we need to be aware of it and act accordingly. So I would kind of and we keep telling all our stakeholders that if you really want to achieve, we have a purpose statement which says empowering people to lead healthier lives, and it used to have two more words after this to kind of live success, live your dreams in whichever way you define your dreams. You may be as you may have as big a dream as you want to, but can you achieve them if you don't care about your health? To my mind, health is something that you really is your biggest asset, so please do focus on that. But I think there's a long way to go. I was very excited when there was this whole Fit India movement which was initiated by the our honorable Prime Minister. And I would love for that to become a bigger movement than we have seen so far, because I think at a macro level, if we want India to achieve its fullest potential, one area that we must ensure is Indians to live to their healthiest version, because your best version is when you are at the healthiest version of yourself. So there's some way to go, Manish, I think, and in our own individual ways for ourselves and for our families as a unit, I think we must give it enough importance. But I think there's some work to do there as we stand today.
I'll take one question from the audience, the online audience, and that is that as a leader, how do you foster a culture of innovation? And also, how do you encourage youngsters like us, if they join you, to bring forward new ideas? That's a question from the offline student.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Say innovation is a very it's not a one-time stuff. It's a ongoing process. It's a culture. It's about how does organization react or respond to kind of new ideas. What and in that whole process, how does the organization respond to those ideas if attempted as pilots or experiments? Depending on the results, how does the organization react or respond? For example, if 10 experiments are run based on ideas that come, we don't expect all 10 will succeed. So is that success or failure seen as a success or failure, or is that seen as learnings from each of those experiments? And I think this basic thing can make the culture of innovation can be very different. Organizations which tend to look at each of those experiments as a learning process, I think the innovation culture inherently starts setting in. The moment you say, hey, this experiment has failed, I think you're giving a message to kind of the audience that there is, if my experiment fails, then there is a bit of a taboo around it. So I think in our organization, the fact that we had the courage to start the whole institution on something that was never ever prevalent in India gave a message that we are ready to kind of take such large risk of trying to put in a completely new way or defining health insurance in a very different way. So that itself gave a very strong message to our internal stakeholders that this organization is ready to take risk. And I think risk is inherently a very important part of innovation culture. As far as youngsters are concerned, I mean, the reason I'm talking to you is because I feel like, energized, when I talk to youngsters of today. I've got two bright young sons, and I kind of feel that there is mentoring is a two-way street today, right? I mean, one is, of course, based on my experience, I can, mentor youngsters, but the way things are changing around us. For example, all of you youngsters who are sitting in this room are digital natives, right? I'm, I'm someone who has had to adapt to digital. Your understanding of digital will be very, very different. So if it comes to, these new age skills, for me, there's an opportunity to kind of get reverse mentored by youngsters in the organization, and I think we have this as an ongoing process, so because some of these ideas that youngsters will bring in will be very different from how I will be able to, or seniors, people with experience, who are not necessarily natives to those skills will be able to bring in, and it's I think it's inherently very, very important for organizations to accept the new emerging kind of shifts in the way the new age employees seeking very different experiences. In my days, concept of these loyalty and all of those used to be there. Today, if I worked in the group for 30 years, it's not because of loyalty, it's because I've got experiences, exposures to kind of consistently explore myself, right? And because that's what even a youngster is demanding, that I want new experience, I want new exposure, I want new learning. And if the organization is giving them, then they'll be willing. Otherwise, they'll say, hey, next one.
So what, in fact, just a follow-up question on that, you're actually one of the rare corporate professionals today who stayed a very long time in the same company for 25, 30 years. So what is your advice to our students? Should they stick on to a company once they find a good one? Should they actively look out for opportunities and diverse experiences? What's your broad advice to students today?
Yeah, I mean, see, I I sometimes think that I may be a dinosaur in this operating environment, but I don't look at 30 years as 30 years. Aditya Birla Group is a very large organization, right? I mean, we call it. So I started my career. Okay, I'll give I don't know, unless you have read about me, if anyone can guess the industry that I started my career, there'll be a special award from Ashish.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, you will find it very difficult. I started my career in fertilizer industry. Okay, to do health insurance today. So from fertilizer to energy to power to kind of financial services to international trading, to kind of life insurance to health insurance. From a finance professional to having got an opportunity to sales stint, operations stint, technology stint, a stint in Indonesia. So it was not really one job, and there were multiple jobs that I did in the incidentally was under the larger banner of Aditya Birla Group. Now for me that was something that worked very well, because the other thing that worked very well for me was the alignment of my personal values with the values of the organization. And it could be very different from different youngsters. I don't my own son, he's a tech, he's a computer science professional. He did it in US, and in his third year of career, he's already changed job once, right? So for me, it's not about whether you're continuing with the organization or not. I think it's about whether you are consistently exploring new learning in different stints. If you're happy with that within your existing organization, great. If you're not getting that, and if you want a different exposure in different industry, different environment, then you must kind of look at different organizations. So I think it's about what makes it's a very individualistic subject. I don't think there's one answer to this question, Ashish, on whether you should stay in one organization. You can do extremely well in one also. You can do extremely well in different organizations also. It what works for you. But the key is, please explore and make sure that you never feel at a later stage that, hey, if I had tried this kind of experience, maybe I would have been richer in what my understanding is today.
More questions from the floor? Anish, your side?
Anyone? Anyone who wants to ask any question? Okay, please.
No?
You can start asking any question.
Good afternoon. My name is John Banda. I'm from BCA Full Stack. So my question is, how does TCS approach innovation and stay ahead in the rapid evolving IT industry?
Sorry, your voice was not clear. Can someone how does?
Company, he's a computer science student, and he says, how does your company stay ahead in the world of IT and keep innovating regularly? That's the question, right, John? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, good question, John. I think in the area of technology, in the area of digital, in the area of data, one of the things that we were attempted to do that traditionally how organization used to work. Traditionally, organization used to work where technology is a vertical, and so organization used to work with these functional verticals. Even today, organization tend to work. But some of these skills now are no longer vertical, skills in an organization. Just because you have a very strong technology function, just because I'm just extending your question, just because you have a very strong digital function.
Are there?
Yeah, they are there. Only speakers. Only speakers. Participants are there.
We'll be reconnecting back to the speaker. Just give us 2 minutes, please.
उनका डिस्कनेक्ट हो गया. Disconnect हो गया.
Meanwhile, Ashish sir, there's another question from an online student who says, what approaches do we take as recruiters to graduate, to actually recruit the graduates and researchers from the university? So basically he's asking that what all do we look in the graduates and the researchers when we are in the hiring process? Probably he's an online student and he wants an answer to that.
Okay, see, there are essentially 3 things that the recruiter will look at. Broadly 3 things. One is your communication skills. Because whatever else you do, and Pooja, you were with me yesterday in an interview, you were interviewing for a company. One of the first things that they look at is your ability to communicate. So you should come across confident. You should have the obvious answers to things like, your own personal background, your academic experience, your extracurriculars. What is it that you want to do in the future? What are your 5-year goals? So that's the first thing, you have to communicate confidently. The second thing is, you will probably be interviewing for a functional job. So you have to know the answers to that functional skills, if it's in a marketing role, or a human resource role, or an IT role. You should have the right answer at the level the company is expecting you to. So that's the second level of preparation you need. Hey, Mayank, hi. In the meantime, I am answering one question. right? So if you don't mind. The question was, how do we prepare for it?
And what approaches do you take to recruit graduates and researchers from the university?
Yeah, if you answer that.
Yeah, Mayank sir, you can hear us?
I think you're muted, sorry.
So you're muted.
Can you repeat the question, please?
There's one online student asking, what approaches do you take to recruit graduates and researchers from the universities? So what process do you look into the students while recruiting them?
Okay. Should I first close my answer to the question that was asked earlier, or should I answer this first?
I think, yeah, probably you can answer the previous question first and then I'll move on this.
Okay. So, I was saying that, organization, our own belief is that areas like technology, digital data are no longer vertical function. They are horizontal functions. What does that mean? That if your organization, let's say if my sales organization, if they are not tech ready, if they're not digital, in their thinking, if they don't understand the power of data, then one vertical function with also smart, the people in that team that maybe will not make the organization successful. So firstly, we run where, for example, the responsibility of the technology function is to make the organization tech first in their thinking, digital first in their thinking. So if a problem comes, do you think like a Google? Because Google is a digital native organization, right? We may not be a digital native, and because our business is, in a traditional industry, but we want to operate like a, a thinking. So we always call ourselves that, it's India's first data first digital ready an organization which think health first as in their whole approach. So I think it's important that, there are people from technology background, from digital background, even in an area like sales, even in an area like product, even in an area like, operations. So technology is no longer just, where the technology function will be there and, you'll have experts in that area. That's one point. And the second is that we, to operate like what is in the new emerging area like squads. You don't operate in functional silos. The moment you operate in squads, where for any problem statement that you're trying to address, there are people from different areas who come together and then fulfill that objective and then go back to the respective teams, again regroup for some other problem statements. That's how you make sure that each of those areas are suitably addressed, including technology. I don't know if I answered your question that you asked. To your second question, see, when we are recruiting people or students, researchers, we may not really recruit really, because we work with researchers, we work with academia in areas of research. We are currently we're already operating with at least two academic institutions on certain area of research in the area of health, etc. But when we recruit students, coming out of MBA or let's say engineering degrees, etc., I think the two, three things that I look at. One, their ability to articulate their perspectives. See, you may be wonderful, you may have great ideas, but you're not able to articulate them, present them, communicate them in the way it is relevant for the audience to whom you are talking. Then, how is it going to really work? So that's very, very important that that I have that confidence and I have the ability to kind of articulate my thoughts. So I think, which, sometimes it's, it's whether it's communication skills or presentation skills, or whether it's just being able to kind of succinctly be clear on what is it that you're trying to communicate to the other side, right? If to the audience, in the audience case in this case will be the entity which is trying to hire you. Of course, you must be functionally competent, and for the skill that you are being hired, you must have, in case of students, they must have done well in their academic, etc. But also more well-rounded. It's not just about, if you, just because you're good in academics doesn't necessarily make you very, successful in life. Life is so much more than just your academic skill. It's one part of it. You kind of we test. I actually use a lens personally, not that I can apply that in every kind of interview. In youngsters, I've got this approach of 5 A's, which I call attitude, ambition, action, which is execution, and 2 new skills have come up, which is agility and adaptability. It moved from IQ to EQ. Today, I think beyond EQ, there's something called AQ, adaptability quotient, right? You may be very intelligent, then the whole thing became about emotional quotient. I mean, are you able to kind of relate with people, deal well, interpersonal skill? But in environment in which we're operating today, if you're not adaptable to the new world, then I think you'll miss out. So if there's a way to test that, we sometimes, and especially for important skills, we do tests, etc., to do that. But I think, which is going back to what the first point of mine was, learning agility and being ready to kind of deal with a very changed environment versus what you may have planned.
We have a personal question for you. From one of our online students is that, when you joined, a lot of people who joined along with you, what did you do differently that you stayed on and grown right to reach this leadership position?
What did I do differently? I kind of I never let go of any opportunity to kind of learn anything new or get different exposures. That was one. Two is that I I seized initiative. I'll give you one example. I was in the life insurance business, and I was doing a pretty senior role. And then there was a project which was getting initiated for health insurance business. And there was no need for me to raise my hand. I just felt excited about another industry related, but very different industry. And I raised my hands and I said, I can do that project. I can run that project as well. And I was asked this question, will you be able to manage both the stints? I said, no, I just want to get experience of what it is like to kind of explore another business. And when I did that, at a later stage, when the health insurance project was approved, I became the national candidate to run that project. And I think it's about, sometimes we wait for people to come. I tell this to youngsters all the time in my organization. I say, if you're waiting for people to come and say, hey, try this, do this differently, then I think you're letting go of your own initiative, right? You have to seize it. You have to raise your hand and say, hey, I understand this project is being thought through, or this I know that there's a problem here. Can I get an opportunity to be part of that, even beyond what I'm doing? No organization will ever say no. All organizations want employees who are kind of keen to kind of learn, contribute beyond what they may be hired for. Every organization will be willing to give those exposures and experiences. Very rarely you will find something different. And I think that mocks what makes people who are able to succeed differently. And I think that worked well. And I was very lucky to have very seasoned kind of professionals who guided me through my career. And somehow I just kept getting different experiences and exposures, and it made sense for me, and it just stuck. And I don't know, it's not that when I joined, I had planned that I'll end up with 30 years in this, in this larger organization. It just tended to happen because I just kept getting different roles at different points of time.
Yes, Pooja, are there any other online questions?
Yes, so there's
Any
one
other
more
question from the audience also? Student audience, yeah. Please.
Meanwhile, there's a question from an online student, sir. He says that young graduates today are afraid of starting their career in sales and business development roles. So what are the benefits of starting a career in sales to develop overall personality? This is the question he's asking. Like, he's afraid of starting his career with sales and business development roles, he says.
If I was able to put a counter question, I would have loved to understand, what is this fear of? Is the fear of failure, or of what comes with sales and business development, which is a lot more tangible kind of expectation in terms of outcomes? Is that the fear? Or is the fear of sometimes people don't like sales, right? I mean, they don't want to it's not about the fear of whether I'll be successful or not. It's just that inherently I don't, because there are some preferences that people do have. If it is that you don't like sales or don't like BD, I think you should be clear, why are you concerned about it? I think if you go one level deeper, if it's a fear of potential failure, because yes, sales is about daily targets, monthly targets, and therefore there is a lot more tangible outcomes that you can be measured at. I think I will say that that can be fun also, right? As I told you about my own case, I was a finance professional. Of course, I became the CFO of the organization, and one fine day, my boss at that stage, he said, would you like to do sales? And my first thing was, hey, whether I'll be good in sales, because sales is like same thing, like whether I'll be able to do sales every day, every month. I mean, all of that. But when I tried that, it was just so exciting. Because and the question is, and especially when you are young, when you're starting your career, what wrong will happen? I mean, what worst will happen? What you may not like it, or you may not be successful in it. But I think the sheer experience of the learning of going through a sales role itself will be so valuable to you in your career ahead. You can't even imagine, folks. And so do not worry about uh, you know I think don't overemphasize on success or failure in life in terms of instants. I think what is important is, am I consistently learning something different? Am I consistently getting to know, because suppose you really experience sales, then you will know in real terms whether you like it or not like it, and whether you'll want to pursue that. So at least you've put aside something, and you don't have this question in your mind whether I should do or not do. And no organization, versus in that organization you may not like it, you can move on to the next organization. I think there's no dearth of opportunities. You're very, very, very lucky, folks, that you're living in a time where opportunity is not scarce. When we were growing up, I remember when I was growing up, when I would talk to my parents, I mean, it will be a chartered accountant, an engineer, or a doctor. In my case, my father is a doctor, so he said doctor is not an option, so engineer or chartered accountant. So I had like two things, or maybe an MBA. And that's it. Today you got so many opportunities, different degrees, different skill that you can learn. Just please, if there's one thing that I would want you to go away from this sentence, please explore your life to your fullest. You never know what you will end up liking, folks. You'll never know. You'll be surprised with what you might be good at beyond. I've had cases where someone joined me as a tax professional, and I said, no, I want you to become a CFO. He said, no, I will not. I can't handle such large teams. I can't handle this. I kept the role open for 6 months. Finally, he had no option. He went in. Today, he thanks me for the fact that he's, is a very successful CFO, and no longer, not just that, he's now aspiring to be a CEO. Otherwise, he would have ended up staying as a tax professional all his life and career. So I think keep exploring. There's nothing, 1 year failure is not going to change your life. You have a very long life to live. It will give you only fresh learning.
And that's a lovely answer, Mayank. I hope this is recorded because I would like to play this again here as to, I personally believe as a professor of management, also a student of management, that a role in sales and business development is essential to being a CEO. At least in the banking and financial services side, I've seen that play over and over again. I've seen that also play in the technology field. A lot of my own friends, classmates, seniors, people who reach the top, the pinnacle of the jobs, have at some point of time done a sales and business development job. Some of them started out, for example, a friend of mine started out with IBM after an IIT degree into sales of computers. Later on moved into other areas, but a business development and a sales role definitely helps you later on. And if you do it when you're young, as Mayank said, that's the best time to do it, right? I mean, there's nothing to lose and only things to gain. So that's a great answer, Mayank. Just have one last question. And the reason I'm saying it is from somebody who's working in the insurance industry. He's working with one of your competitors, actually, and he's a digital online student of ours. He says, how do I grow in the insurance industry and secure a good career in future? What are your few tips? That's what he's asking us. If you can give tips to him and to all of our students.
It's not about growing in an insurance industry. I think it's growing about in any industry. I mean, if he's a student, I mean, I think each industry has its own kind of areas which where a lot more action will happen than the other. I mean, you spoke about sales and business development. I tend to agree with you that I think the exposure, what is it about sales and business development. It's just the fact that you get to know what's happening in the external market, in the environment, meeting customers, meeting different external stakeholders, which makes you even more confident, ready to deal with. Because finally, if you want to run a business, you need to kind of be ready to deal with external stakeholders. So I think in insurance industry also today, like if I talk about health insurance industry, there are different areas where we hire people. We hire people in, of course, sales and business development. We hire, operations is a very large. It's a health insurance, insurance is a very large operations in intensive industry, especially health insurance, where claims, etc. Number of transactions that we do is very large. So you may be an expert in that area. But I think if you ask me new emerging skills, I heard that the question came from a student who's in the area of digital. It's a great area to be in. It's an emerging skill. I think it's required in every part of the organization. Technically, I was joking with my team that, can I make it mandatory that every person should know every employee should be trained in how to code or how to kind of be digital ready? Because I think learning technology and digital, etc., is very integral part of any success in any role. So I think whichever way, whatever is your area of interest, go back, and if you're able to apply some of these skills that you're learning, I don't see why you can't be successful. But depends on what your ambition is. If you want to be one day running a business or running a large part of the business, then cross-functional exposures becomes necessary, because we too tend to look at people who have had exposures in different parts of the organization. Sales and business development being one important part. We now potentially have even technology people running businesses. That's becoming a reality now, because businesses are so much more tech first, and many companies now, if you look at many successful companies, they say we are a technology company, we're not a health insurance company, we're a digital company, we're not a health insurance company. So I think that is also an area that if people have good expertise in, they can be successful.
Great. I really thank you, Mayank, for being here. I think students, we should have a round of applause for Mayank.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for being here with our students, for your words of wisdom. We have them recorded. I hope you don't mind us playing them once in a while to remotivate them, or to motivate students who are not able to join us today. We have a hall of around 180 that is full. After that, we had to turn away everybody else, except the students who joined us. Around 75 students eventually joined us online. Sorry, students, I understand you have some raised hands online. If you type the questions, we'll probably try to get back to Mayank or answer it through your professors. Thanks once again, Mayank. And,
yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure, and I think it's great to be amongst the young minds of today. I mean, you're the folks who will take India ahead. So I mean, I if there are questions of me, you can please. I don't mind responding separately over what are emails. So and maybe one day meet you in person, Ashish.
Right, that's what we all look forward to, inviting you to Shoolini University. It is both a holiday and it will be a pleasure to have you address our students in person. So thanks once again.
Thank you, and take care, and all the best.
So I once again thank you, Mayank sir, thank you, Ashish sir. And because the hall is full of students and we do have some online students, I just want to quickly wrap up that what recruiters are looking for in new students when you go for interviews. Your communication skills, how you articulate whatever you want to say, your functional area knowledge, and your 5 A's, very well said by Mayank sir: ambition, attitude, adaptive, agility, and action. And above that, you must have cross-functional exposure. Don't let your any opportunity let go, any opportunity. And then networking, trust, learning are very imperative. Keeping yourself updated is very important, and be digital ready. So thank you, students. Thank you, sir.
One last thing, the future CEOs, either all have sales experience or have technology experience
Actually, I wrote it and understood. Do not be afraid to start your career in sales and business development
and technology.
and technology. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Thank you, everyone.